Hi, everybody. Welcome to Conduct Vision Talks. Today, I am very happy to welcome a good friend of mine, a remarkable and fascinating lady whose unique approach to business education is an inspiration for students worldwide. Professor at leading US universities, for example, the Forbes Business School and University of Seattle, Dr. Marvee Marr is also a regular lecturer in Europe, South America, and Asia. In one of her articles, Marvee wrote that she is a lifelong learner. I was curious to find out more about her unique approach, so sitting here in Prague, I reached out to her in St. Louis, Missouri. Marvee, in preparation for this talk, you mentioned the importance of moving outside one's own comfort zone. This is difficult for many, well, including me. How do you approach this, and what do you advise your students and clients?
That's a great question, Bibi. I personally am a traveler. So the way I usually step outside my comfort zone is that I go to a country I've never been to meet the people. And it's very important to me that when I'm in a country on vacation or moving there, that I learn the local culture. You know, I don't just want to stay in my hotel and take tours. I want to get out and meet the people because I'm pushing myself outside my comfort zone. You know? And it works for me. I advise many of my students to travel as a means to push themselves outside their comfort zone. I think all universities in the United States, around the world, but definitely in the United States, should have a mandatory study abroad for students so they get outside their comfort zone. Yeah? Because a person's comfort zone is a psychological state. And that psychological state, we feel less stress, we feel more content, and we even might feel happy per se, only because things are less stressful. And while that's great, staying in that state makes us stagnant. It means we're not learning, we're not growing, we're not improving, we're not contributing. And so really to be a learner, to be a part of society, to contribute well, you need to push yourself outside your comfort zone. So I advise people different ways. Like for students, I say travel, get outside your comfort zone. And I've had many students over the 22-year careers of teaching at various universities across the world reach out to me, and say, I met you 10 years ago and you changed my life. Since then, I have done X, Y, and Z. I've had students go to Nigeria for the Peace Corps. Students travel to Europe. Students go to Asia. Even as they grow older and as adults, once they learn that pushing that envelope, pushing open that comfort zone, they realize what they gain from it. Because it takes getting over the fear of the problem, but once you do, you're thrilled at what you can accomplish. So it's hard. I know people who refuse to leave their comfort zone, and I'm always pushing them, but they're adults, so they have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes when I do consulting for businesses or companies, I think about the comfort zone in a different manner because I can't tell the CEO, hey, go travel, though it might help. But I can say, hey, Mr. CEO or Ms. CEO, why don't you go work with your frontline managers? Or why don't you have your marketing director go work in HR for a week? Because that pushes them outside their expertise and comfort zone, helps them to see the other side of things, and then you can create solutions. Because too often, industries and organizations, you have 200 people coming in every day to work the same time, leaving the same time, doing the same thing, not really even communicating. It creates things like groupthink, where one person has an idea and everybody just immediately says yes without analyzing it, because they've almost become one, because they spend so much time together and not pushing each other or pushing the envelope. So that's what I mean when I say get outside your comfort zone. Experience the world. Experience somebody else's point of view. Walk in somebody else's shoes. Take the time to challenge yourself to be a better person.
Now that's a great thought. I never actually never thought of that. I know that it's good to to move to other departments, see what they're doing. But actually, as you said, it's actually travel throughout your company. Like even if you don't travel abroad or travel within your own country, but travel within your own company.
Yeah.
One thought that I think which connects with this, what I read in your article, actually, you start with it, and I love it, and it's that I'm a lifelong learner.
Mm-hmm.
And reading it, I saw that you have very specific views on lifelong learning. So can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah. I'm an academic. I have been for over 20 years. And that's a current phrase, or current and constant phrase you hear in academia is we're lifelong learners. What I found is that's not always true. One of the examples I always share with people is when I moved from Prague, I moved to Platteville, Wisconsin. I had like reverse culture shock coming back to the States, but in a very small community, which I wasn't used to, and rural, like, farmland. And most of the people in the department, at least 80–90% of them, had been there over 2 decades. So that's 20 years you've been sitting there. Now, my mentor spent a lot of time updating her class curriculum, updating cases, updating videos she used because she wants to be current and she's a lifelong learner. But we had other colleagues that were using the same book for 20 years, using the same exam for 20 years.
Oh, boy.
I mean, that's not a lifelong learner. What are you learning? You're sitting here. And because we're supposed to be teaching the future, we need to be learning so that we can impart more wisdom on them. Okay? Exactly. So what I do is I try to learn something new every day. And I keep a journal, and I'm always talking about the fact that when I travel, I learn so much. I call travel knowledge with a view. It's another little quote of
that's
mine.
Travel. I read it in your article. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful.
Travel is knowledge with a view because I learn. Every person I've ever met, I've learned something from. I've learned something from someone on a 2-hour train ride across the country that changed my world, changed my worldview, changed the way I thought, or just introduced me to something I've never, ever thought about. I was like, wow, never thought of that. Yeah, I was actually working on my first master's degree, which is an MFA, and I was writing my thesis, called a dissertation in Europe, on domestic violence. And I couldn't get into a domestic violence shelter because they're private and they're hidden so that abusers don't find the women. I was on a plane and just happened to meet a woman from Houston whose daughter owned 3 shelters in Chicago. Just coincidentally. She's trying to learn, meeting people. She was like, what do you do? We started talking, and her daughter let me in her shelter so I could interview women.
Oh, that's lovely. That's fantastic.
And to me, that's really what the world is about, is you have to push that comfort zone and continue to learn from every person you see. And it doesn't, people always think, well, what if I disagree with the person's comment? That doesn't mean you didn't learn. You learn that you disagree with that. You learn that you don't think that. You learn that you won't perpetuate that idea.
This is so important. This is so important for all of us around the world.
Definitely. And you can learn for someone you disagree with. It's not always about agreement. Sometimes it's about learning that's not what I think. You may not have thought about it until someone says something, and then you say, hey, I disagree. Well, you just learned something right there that you don't agree with that action. So I just think those two tie in, like you said, they tie in together. Pushing your envelope, because part of getting out of your comfort zone is wanting to learn.
Yes.
I once had a student post in my classroom, are you teachable? An article called, Are You Teachable? There was some flux in the classroom. It was an online class, and people didn't like that I was challenging them per se. And so the student who had called me, and we had discussed it and everything, he found this really good article, and he posted, and he said, are you teachable? And it was amazing how people read it and thought, oh, I didn't think about that. And it's the same comment. If you're not willing to be a lifelong learner or willing to push your own envelope out of your comfort zone, you can't learn. You're not teachable. I can't teach you if I wanted to. You have to be open enough to welcome new ideas and to be teachable.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, let's all be teachable,
Yes.
That's great inspiration. Well, I can say one thing that I have learned, amongst many things from you, is about Thanksgiving. Because I fondly remember the Thanksgiving dinners you gave here in Prague. And I learned actually the whole tradition and the way of serving. And it was delicious plus of Thanksgiving. So, Marvee, many thanks for this talk. It's been wonderful, inspiring, and look forward to seeing you then again and sharing your wonderful and insightful, inspiring ideas. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Bibi. Let me tell you a quick thing is every country I've ever lived in, I've done Thanksgiving dinner and brought local people over. In Mexico, 40 people showed up.
Okay,
So
wow.
that's one of the ways I try to teach and be a lifelong learner. It's
That's
been
a great
wonderful.
way, because that's how we learn cultures and are open-minded. We accept, and we also learn what we agree with, what we as you said, what we agree and disagree. I love that. Is that we learn also from that, from disagreement.
Definitely. And I tell people, don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, true. Okay, Marvee, many thanks, and
Thank you, Bibi.
all the
Lovely
best. Stay
talking to
safe.
you.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.